Hi, I'm Katie Hendricks,
And I'm Gay Hendricks. We're the authors of Conscious Loving.
and we want to welcome you to our home here in sunny Southern California. We want to invite you on in because we want to share with you the most important things that you need to know about relationships. So come on in.
There were three things that nobody had ever told us about relationship, and it cost us a lot of pain and suffering in our first year or two together until we figured them out. So we'd like to save you some trouble and hopefully add to your joy in your love life by sharing these three things with you.
So whether you're single and you're looking for that special person in your life, or you're in a committed relationship and you want to improve your relationship or just up-level it, we think you're going to learn a lot in this video that you can put to use right now.
One of the first things is that we'd really love you to know that many of the things you've heard about relationship are absolutely wrong. We had to acknowledge when we first got together that almost everything we had learned growing up, we had to kind of put it aside and start from scratch and relearn some things that really worked in producing lasting love.
We grew up with a lot of critical parents and critical interactions, and also grew up with a belief that relationships were really hard work. When I remember coming downstairs once when my parents were having a party and they were crashing around and flirting outrageously with each other, and I actually didn't even recognize my parents. I thought, who are these people? And I thought, boy, if this is what relationships are like, I don't want any part of it. And I know you had something like that happen too when you were in grade school or high school.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I had to write an essay for English class, Miss Leonard's English class, and the title of the essay was supposed to be Something I Strongly Believe In. And I didn't discover this essay until I was in my 40s and we were cleaning out my mother's house after my mom passed away. And so this essay says, there are very few things of which I'm absolutely certain, but the one thing I'm absolutely certain of is I will never ever get married. So this was my 15-year-old declaration to the world. And I went on for 3 pages to describe how all the married couples that I knew, my parents and their friends and my family and that kind of thing, the married ones all seemed to be just practically sleepwalking. And I didn't want to put myself in any kind of situation that looked that terribly boring. So that's why my essay, I should put it in one of my relationship books now, just to show how far you can come as a human being in your transformation.
So we want you to know that if we can transform our relationship, you can. And we want to share with you the most important things we found that will make lasting love easy. And we want to share those with you both today and also on videos we're going to share with you in the future.
One of the things we learned, which we'd love to share with you now, is that relationships, all relationships, go through 5 stages. And we learned what those 5 stages are, and we'd like to show them to you now because that'll help you understand where a lot of your problems in relationship come from, whether you're single or in a couple relationship now. Here's one of the things that we really wish we'd known in the first year or 2 of our relationship, and that is that relationships go through stages. There are 5 key stages. If you really understand what those are, you'll have a much better chance of moving through the glitches that inevitably come up.
So we want to show you what those are, and here's stage number 1. We call it the romance stage. So across a crowded room, and we literally met each other across a crowded room, we come into contact and say, oh my God, look at this man, he's so big and powerful.
Oh, and she's so sensitive to my feelings and needs. Wow, so that's the romance stage, and in working with 20,000 people over the years, we've asked people to tell us how long that lasted in their particular case, and the range has been from 6 minutes to 6 months. We had one couple that their romance stage only lasted about 6 minutes before they went into stage 2.
And so here's stage 2. And stage 2 we call the inevitable. And it's not that love doesn't work, it's that love works so well that it brings to the surface anything that you haven't looked at in yourself or in your relationship. So the he's so big and powerful starts looking like, oh my God, he's taking up all the space.
And the, wow, she's so sensitive to my feelings, a few months later gets into, God, she's so sensitive about everything. And so the inevitable is when all of the stuff comes up in the space of the love you're experiencing, it pushes to the surface anything unresolved from the past so that you can rework that and move to an even higher degree of love. But a lot of people stop there. They hit the inevitable stage and they don't know how to move through it. And that's one of the things that is so incredibly important and powerful that we have learned, is that there are ways of moving through this really quickly and easily so that you don't have to get shut down and stood up and on
And run over.
And run over. And
So here's what you need to know is that there's a choice point. Number 3, stage 3, is the choice point. And the choice point doesn't just happen once. It can happen repeatedly in your relationship. And what we found when we were exploring is that at the beginning, we chose this. When we came to the choice point, we were more inclined to choose the unconscious loving choice, which would be to withhold. Gabe would say, "What are you feeling?" I go, "Nothing, I'm fine." And
that's called withholding or stonewalling, some people call
Yeah.
it that. But it's that kind of tucking yourself in and not really revealing the true self to the other person.
And when you do that, you withdraw from the other person, because we found it takes measurable physical energy to keep yourself from revealing. So you withdraw from the other person, and then the other
The
person starts.
looking like they are in need of a good self-improvement project.
And then this is a lot of what happens in the unconscious loving choice. So here's the choice that we discovered in our relationship and that we've been sharing with people, which is the lasting love choice.
In the lasting love choice, when things come up, instead of withholding and withdrawing and blaming things on the other person, what you do is begin to wonder. You open up your wonder muscles and you begin to wonder, what is it about my programming that made it inevitable that this event would happen, whatever the thing is that you're arguing about?
So you open up to wonder, and creating a is actually a great way to do that, because it moves you from your critical brain to your wonder brain. And another thing we found that was really incredibly powerful was to simply reveal. No, I feel scared,
Or
or
I feel sad, or
I don't know
feel
what
angry.
to do right now. I don't know what's going on, and I feel distant from you. So just saying what's real really opened up connection. And we were really amazed to find out that appreciating is this wonderful move that people can make that opens up the flow of love and connection. In fact, I'm just looking over at you and being overjoyed by the glow in your face all over again, and thinking, God, what a smart guy he is.
I'm glowing because I've had 32 years of waking up every day feeling like the luckiest man on earth. The power of appreciation is really one of the great untapped resources. And we're not just talking about appreciation of the other person, we're talking also about learning how to appreciate yourself at deeper and deeper levels. So if you take the lasting love choice, you get certain results. If you take the unconscious choice, you get another set of results.
So this is stage number 4, the result. And if you take the unconscious loving choice, what tends to happen is that the problems recycle. You have the same kind of issues over and over again. So you criticize each other or you blame each other. And you have less intimacy because you're on guard, you're defensive with your partner. And you don't feel creatively alive because you're using so much of your energy for recycling patterns.
And your partner begins to look more and more boring, and it's also for a simple reason too, that you're bored more and more with yourself and with the relationship, and so it gets projected onto the relationship. So what happens then if you repeatedly take the lasting love choice where you wonder, reveal, and appreciate?
Let's take a look. What can happen as a result? Whoa.
Well, one thing that happens is that you get to actually feel an easy flow of love. So love doesn't come with all of that pain attached to
And
it.
the push-pull.
And the push-pull and power struggles and that kind of thing. You experience an easy flow of love.
And you also get to spend more and more of your time in creative exhilaration. The actual experience of creativity is one of the most joyful experiences that you can have. And more of your time with yourself and with your partner goes into creating and co-creating and supporting your partner's creativity. So you tend to leave behind these issues and spend more and more of your time in ease and in creativity.
But that's not even the biggest payoff.
But wait.
But wait, there's more. The stage 5 event that happens really can change your life.
Yes, and it only happens if you take the conscious loving choice. And that is, you get to rekindle your relationship, and your relationship becomes a manifestation instrument.
What do we mean by that? Well, the act of being with your partner synergizes your manifestation power to the extent that you're able to produce a great deal more than you were able to produce before. You have more creativity, you create more productive output, and you're able to take your relationship into a new state of consciousness that doesn't actually allow problems to recycle.
So rather than being in the push-pull of your energy moving against each other, you actually join your energy and move toward what you really want, creating your dreams and your partnership and making a contribution to your family and your community. So those are the 5 stages. There's another thing that nobody ever told us, and boy, I wish they had, which is that lasting love made easy is an inside job. That if you make changes and I make changes inside myself, they get reflected in my relationship. So what we found is that singles really need to learn how to make a wholehearted commitment to really get themselves into the pool of discovery so that they can learn what they need to learn by making that commitment. Also, a central thing that singles need to learn is how to really love themselves. So if I don't love myself, I'm much more likely to attract someone into my life who I'm looking for them to fulfill me, I'm looking for them to love, but I'm also going to be holding them away because I don't really believe they love me because I don't love myself. So learning how to love yourself is something I wish I had known, and it's really made a huge difference for me. The other thing that we found for singles is that finding out what your absolute yeses are and your absolute nos are. Your absolute yeses are those things that you want above anything in your relationship. And we recommend that you identify 3 of those, the 3 things that are most important to you. But it's also important to identify your 3 absolute nos. Those are the things that are deal breakers for you. So for me, one of my deal breakers in relationship is someone who's involved in an addiction. So if I saw that showing up, I'd go, nope, not interested in that relationship. So those are things I wish I had known when I was first getting into the dating game.
There's something that couples need to know too. There's a whole set of things that we learned once we opened up our relationship and began to really connect with each other. We came up against various barriers, and one of those barriers was that we would get stuck in the state of consciousness which recycled problems, which caused problems to recycle over and over again. And so we invented a lot of ways to shift out of that state of consciousness that generates conflict and into a state of consciousness that generates lasting love. And that's one of the things we're so excited to be sharing with you in this video series.
Because what it does is actually make love easy. And that was a whole revolutionary concept for us, that love could be easy. And we enjoy that ease in our relationship every day now, and we want to share that with you.
One of the other things that couples really need to learn, it's kind of like part of the couples curriculum that almost nobody learns it, and that is how to shift from blame to wonder. You know, it's widely known that blame and criticism are the biggest destroyers of intimacy in relationship. And one of the things you absolutely need to know how to do in relationship is shift out of that blame state of consciousness where you're not projecting blame or you're not drawing blame to yourself. Because many people, when they leave a relationship, say, I just couldn't stand being criticized all the time. So it's actually pretty simple to eliminate blame and criticism. For example, we have not said a blameful word to each other in 10 or 15 years since we began to catch on to all of this. So it's possible to actually create a relationship where nobody ever criticizes or blames the other person.
And we want to share that with you because we've learned some powerful, simple, effective ways of doing that. So here's what we'd like you to do. We'd like you to download the PDF that comes with this video and review it, go over it, because it's going to summarize what we've been talking to you about. It also has an activity on it that we really encourage you to do because it's going to allow you to put these things into practice right now in your relationships.
We'd also love it if you would leave comments and questions below, and we'll be happy to respond to all of them in future videos that we make.
We'd also love it if you'd share this video with the people you care about in your life so that they can learn about lasting love made easy as well.
One of the things we're going to do in our next video is we're going to take apart the relationship problems that people actually have. The problems that people confront every day, whether you're a single person or you're in a couple's relationship. And we'll talk about things like chores, and we'll talk about things like child rearing, and we'll talk about things like how to handle the dance of intimacy so that you have a great passionate relationship with your partner and also a very creatively productive relationship with your partner.
And of course, we're going to cover sex and money because that's at the top of everybody's list. So until next time, we wish you an abundance of lasting love in your life. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for your dedication to creating more lasting love the easy way.
Hi, I'm Katie Hendricks. Welcome to our home.
And I'm Gay Hendricks. Come on into our living room with us here. We want to have a heart-to-heart talk with you about something that everybody really needs to know about relationships.
So come on in.
Here's why all of us need to invest some time every day in learning about relationships. When they do big surveys of what kind of problems people have, they always come up with the same three things. Number one is relationships, number two is money, and number three is their weight.
And there's something that all of these have in common, which is that a very small percentage of people are actually able to take responsibility for those issues and to be able to create the results they want. It's especially a problem in relationships.
So take a look at this graphic for a moment. Notice that 97 of those figures are in one color and 3 of those figures are in another color. And that's the reason why we want to explain to you that only 3% of the population says that they're having a really good time in their relationships. So there's this little group of 3% of the population that's having a good time in their relationships, and 97% of the population isn't. And we consider that an international disaster sign.
Yeah, so if there were only 3% of people were able to drive their cars successfully, that would be a national issue. But we learn more about driving our cars than we do about driving our relationships. So we consider ourselves part of that 3%. We've enjoyed a fabulous relationship for years, and we want to show you what we've learned about that can allow you to become part of that 3% really quickly.
How does that work? Well, there's one move you can make right now that gets the process going, and it's the move of getting willing. The big obstacle that most of us have to get over in our relationships is that we've been locked inside an old paradigm that's been producing problems over and over and over again. If you're single, it's been producing one set of problems, and if you're a couple, it's been producing another set of problems. But what you need to do first and foremost is to get willing to learn something brand new that would make a shift that would put you into that 3% club.
So see if you'd be willing to try this on right now. I'm willing to have a great time in my love life. I'm willing to have a great time in my close relationships. Go ahead and try that on for a moment. Say it in your mind and feel it in your body and see if you would be willing to have your love life be a source of joy for you.
And once you've gotten willing, let's talk about what you do if you're single and what you do if you're a couple. First of all, if you're single, like many of us are, you're going to have one set of problems that usually keeps recycling. For example, you might recycle bringing someone into your life who's not quite right for you. Or you might recycle being abandoned or betrayed or left in some way. So usually the problem is not that we have a problem in relationship, it's that we have the same problem over and over and over again. And single people have one set and couples have another. For example, couples, let's just talk about some of the couples problems people have brought into us over the past 6 months.
Gosh, well, the number one is money. Fighting about money, not feeling they have enough money. One person tries to control the money supply and the other one feels that they can't really enjoy freedom with money. So that's probably number one.
Another one that people have brought into us, I can think of a couple of them recently, is infidelity issues. In one situation, the person had a series of infidelities. In another situation, there was just one big one. But the real issue there, that those same things had been recycling over and over again, the conditions that led up to that infidelity. So you have to look underneath a problem like money or underneath a problem like infidelity to really understand what drives it, what actually causes the problem.
And it's not so much the problems, it's that those problems recycle. And when they recycle over and over again, people begin to feel a sense of despair and hopelessness, like nothing is ever going to change. And that's one of the things we want to address with you because we know that they can change.
So take a moment and wonder with us, why is it that relationship problems have a tendency to recycle? Like, for example, if you have a flat tire, you just get the thing fixed and you drive on down the road. You don't spend the next 10 years driving thinking about your flat tire and
why did I have a flat tire?
Why did that flat tire? Why did it let me down? You just fix it and move on. But there's something about relationships that's different because we've literally had people coming in, probably at this point, thousands by now, who were locked inside a particular paradigm that had kept the same problem recycling over and over again. And sometimes the problems look absurdly simple on the surface. So take a look at these two toothpaste tubes for a moment.
Yes, and let's look at them from some different angles. Notice that this one is so nicely rolled up, and this one looks like it's been attacked.
And so what's the problem? Well, for starters, you have two different paradigms about how to roll up a toothpaste tube. You have the neat persons here, which is very nicely done.
We would assume that this is the neat person.
And then you have a person here who is, shall we say, more creative about how they roll up their toothpaste tube. So two different paradigms. But here's the real problem. Both of these paradigms work pretty well. You might think of this one as the good one and this one as the bad one, or if you're like Albert Einstein, this was the way he did his toothpaste tube. If you're like one of those kind of folks, you say, wow, that's very creative, that's very good. The problem becomes that we lock into a paradigm of how we think it's supposed to be done.
This is the way it's supposed to be done,
no,
clearly.
This is it. If you're a creative person, if you were any kind of creative person at all, you would know that you don't want to spend your time being obsessive about rolling up a...
Well, if you are tidy and neat, then you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to get toothpaste out of your tube. It just rolls right out and you can just spend your time on other things. So these kinds of, you may think that this is a silly conversation, but I want you to know that most of the problems that we've seen with people are exactly the same because they are about a paradigm. They're about a belief that you have that comes from a way of thinking that you're locked into. And that's your paradigm. That's your box in which you're thinking. And that's the paradigm that we want to take a look at with you.
We've actually struggled with all three of those things we talked about earlier: weight, money, and relationship. And for example, I used to weigh 320 pounds, believe it or not. I weighed 182 this morning. So at one point in my life, I weighed 320 pounds. And I was actually very obese as a child. By the end of my first year of life, I weighed in the top 2% of all baby weights, according to the weight charts. And so my mother took me around to all sorts of different weight specialists when I was a kid. And I would sometimes lose weight. They would put me on some real radical diet and I would lose weight and then I would gain it right back. And it kept happening over and over again throughout my teens and up into my 20s. Finally, in 1969, when I was 24 years old, I had a gigantic flash of enlightenment where I saw how my weight, my whole relationship with my body, was being controlled by an old paradigm. And I saw that I didn't need to be in the grip of that paradigm anymore. So I made a shift, and within a year I had lost 100 pounds, and more came off over the next couple of years until I got down to the weight that I've been at for the last 30 years or so. So
you created a whole new paradigm for your health. So it wasn't based on your weight. You created a paradigm about your fitness.
yeah, I was in the grip of this old paradigm that basically said I must remain fat, and then I would sometimes lose weight, but the old paradigm, because I hadn't shifted it, I would gain the weight right back. And there was a famous actor named Walter Slezak who was very obese, and he said that during his lifetime he had lost several thousand pounds, and he would lose it and it would gain back. And our friend Janine Roth says the same thing, that she's lost and regained over 1,000 pounds. And now, of course, she's very slim, and it's because something happened with that paradigm. She was able to loosen that paradigm and then bring in a new idea. Like my new idea was, it's okay for me to have a healthy, vibrant, alive, slender body. And once I got that new paradigm working, the rest of my life, my weight kind of fell into line behind it.
And it has for many, many decades. And it's the same with relationships. The problem is that the old paradigm, your old way of thinking, the box in which you find yourself, keeps you recycling problems and having the same problems over and over again. For example, not finding your communication being clear, or having a problem that you just can't find a solution for, or feeling less intimacy between you and the people that you want to be close to. So it's not that problems occur. Problems are going to occur. It's that they recur, and that comes from being stuck in the old paradigm.
So how many times have couples said to us, or single people, that they've recycled the same problem dozens of times? We actually had a couple in our office who'd been married for 29 years who had been having exactly the same argument since their honeymoon. They were able to document how many times it had gone back. And so we did something with them that took us a few minutes, but it enabled them to shift out of that problem that they'd been stuck in for 29 years. What did we do? Well, we assisted them in shifting their paradigm.
So one of the things that Einstein said that we really treasure is that it's impossible to solve a problem in the same state of consciousness in which the problem occurs. In other words, in the same paradigm. So if you're having a problem and you're inside of the problem, you can't see out of that. But when you shift your paradigm, it opens up a horizon, it opens up magical possibilities for you. And most people in their relationships simply don't know the possibilities, how easy it actually can be to shift your old paradigm to a new and very magical one.
So just think of a simple example. If you have a television show you're watching on channel 402, for example, on your cable, and you hit the button, you go immediately to channel 403. And maybe 402 is the golf channel and 403 is the soap opera channel. So you can change to an entirely different paradigm with an entirely different storyline with just the movement of your thumb. Well, changing paradigms in relationship is a little bit like that. What you have to do first is to see how your old paradigm is influencing your current relationships, and then make a shift to a new paradigm that allows you to have an easy flow of lasting love. So think of it this way. Your old paradigm causes relationships problems to recycle over and over, and then in the new paradigm, you feel an easy flow of lasting love. And what you want to do is learn things that allow you to shift quickly from one to the other so you don't get stuck in recycling those old problems over and over.
And most people just simply haven't had the mentoring to know how to make those shifts. Just like someone teaches you how to shift and use your remote, and we want to teach you the quick ways that you can shift your relationship to a new paradigm from our decades of exploration so that we can make lasting love easy for you.
So check in again with a willingness idea in yourself. Just ask yourself right now, as we've been talking, tune in again and find if you would be willing to learn some simple things that allow you to shift out of the paradigm which causes your relationship issues to recycle over and over again and into a new paradigm where you feel an easeful flow of lasting love. Check it out in yourself right now. Am I willing to have that happen? This is just between you and yourself. Just kind of check in. It really is an inside job first. So tune in and find out if you feel that willingness inside. Because if you do, you can create real relationship miracles. We know because we've seen a lot of them and experienced a lot of them in our time.
And we continue to day to day. One of the biggest problems that people run into is that they haven't had any mentoring about how to have successful relationships. That was certainly true for us. We didn't have any models for how successful relationships or thriving relationships actually worked, and we bet that you didn't either.
So let's look at this again. Old paradigms cause our relationship problems to recycle. A new paradigm, feeling a flow of constant, easeful love, that's a very different thing. So just try on those two states of consciousness in yourself for a moment. Try on the old paradigm for a moment of your relationship problems as they are, just recycling over and over again. And then change the channel. Just kind of change with your thumb on your remote control to that channel called easeful flow of lasting love.
So here's another paradigm, an old paradigm. I must settle for less than my full potential for love. And see if that's familiar to you. Here's the new paradigm when you shift the channel. I can experience my full potential for love. I can have all of the love that I want.
Here's another one. The old paradigm says that I have to compromise my creative flow to be in a relationship. I can't have both of them. The old paradigm says you have to sacrifice for the relationship. You have to sacrifice your own creative individuality. The new paradigm says I can have my creativity and be in a close relationship too. That changes everything because suddenly you're not pulling back from the relationship in order to have your creativity. You're in a relationship and your full creative potential is flowing at the same time.
So we want to summarize what we've been talking about. So first of all, underneath the old paradigm is a recycling of problems. So the old paradigm creates a recycling, so you're spinning around in the same problems over and over again.
Remember what Albert Einstein said about problems. You can't solve a problem in the same state of consciousness in which the problem was created. And nowhere is that more true than in the area of relationships. And most of us just haven't had the mentoring to show us how to shift out of that old state of consciousness into the new state of consciousness.
And once you do that, once you shift your paradigm and your state of consciousness, truly relationship miracles become possible for you. And that's what we want for everybody.
In the next video, we want to show you some of the amazing experiences that become possible when you shift out of that old paradigm into the new paradigm of lasting love made easy.
And we want to show you some specific ways that you can make those shifts faster and easier than you ever thought possible.
Please leave your comments and your questions below, and we're looking forward to reading and responding to them.
And please share this video with friends. And there are buttons below for Twitter and Facebook, and we'd love to have you share this with people that you're close to.
Until next time, we wish you a lifetime of lasting love made easy.
Hi, I'm Katie Hendricks, and I want to welcome you to our office where we've seen lots of people and lots of miracles occur.
We'd like to have a heart-to-heart talk with you today about what's possible in relationships. You know, by now you, like us, have probably experienced your share of relationship pain. What happens is that people get bogged down in those old paradigms and keep repeating the same kind of painful situations over and over and over again. But today we'd like to talk to you about what's possible when you break free of that. What can actually happen in relationships when you find yourself able to jump out of that old painful paradigm and into something brand new?
The first step to break free is to make a commitment. We found that making a commitment is the most powerful first step to both break out of an old paradigm and also to start something new. So you might have experienced that feeling or that sense inside of, I can't have lasting love. And the feeling of that in your body and the despair that that might bring. We want to suggest a shift for you to try on right now, which is, I can enjoy lasting love and it can be easy.
So think about the old paradigm, which might go something like this. I can't have lasting love, or lasting love cannot be easy for me. So that produces a certain result. It produces a lot of hard work and a lot of dissatisfaction. Try on this new paradigm. Just run the sentence through your mind just to get a kind of initial feel for it. I can enjoy an easy flow of lasting love. That'd be one way to say it. Or another way to say it would be, I enjoy lasting love. And it's easy. So just try on that idea and find out if you can make a little space in your willingness for that to be a real possibility in your life. Because if you're willing, we can show you exactly how to do it.
Yeah, so a commitment gets you started on the path, and then there are lots of steps that you can take from there. You might have experienced your past and the decisions that you made in the past being like a freight train of those old decisions and those old wrecked relationships that you're carrying along behind you. But those don't have to have any meaning for you now unless you keep giving them your attention. When you give your attention to something new now, you can really transform your life.
Let me give you an example of that. We had a woman come in who was 56 years old, and she was a single woman, and she very much wanted to manifest a close relationship. But she'd done everything under the sun. You know, she'd had a couple of relationships, long-term relationships that didn't go well, and then she'd tried the dating scene and gone out with a bunch of people, and none of those had really worked out. And she was an incredibly bright woman, and I remember what she said in our session with her. She had worked out the statistics, and she's
a very bright woman.
She's an engineering graduate from a big school, and she said that the statistics were better for her of getting kidnapped by terrorists than they were for finding lasting love at the age of 56. So that's quite an old paradigm.
Yeah.
It was like she handed us that on a platter.
Right.
And so all it took really was about an hour of good mentoring. During that hour, one of the things that we asked her to embrace is the idea that all she needed was one person. She didn't need to figure out the statistics that there were 3 million possible candidates available out of the 6 billion on the planet Earth. She'd already worked that out. We said, would you be willing to just have one? And at first she went through all sorts of, I don't deserve that, I've never had that, I don't want to go through the pain again. Once she was able to kind of breathe her way through that, she was able to embrace this new paradigm, which is, I can enjoy lasting love and it can be easy. Here's the magic. Very shortly thereafter, she found the one. She really found one that was magical for her.
Really magical. It only took a couple of months, and we just recently were helping them celebrate their 10th anniversary. So with her, we helped her to find that unlovable place inside. Remember, we were talking to you about love being an inside job, and once she had located that inner place that was in despair and had really loved it and had opened up to a new commitment, she created lasting love for herself, and it gets easier and easier for them as the years go by.
And it doesn't just work with single people too. Let's give another example. We had a couple in not too long ago that had been struggling and struggling and struggling. They'd been married a long time. They'd been married over 20 years because they had kids in college and that kind of thing. And what had happened is so many times it happens in long-term relationships, it's like the air getting let out of a tire over time.
Yeah,
so that
same
eventually
old.
It kind of blap, 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 blap. And as you roll along the road of life, and it's not very interesting. It gets tiresome pretty quickly. And they were just flat out bored with each other when they came in.
They also were really stuck in creating excitement in their relationship by criticizing each other and having fights, which we find a lot of people do. And when we assisted them to make that shift, rather than struggling with each other and criticizing each other, into being willing to have their love not only be lasting, but be able to be rekindled and to be easy, they started to learn to appreciate each other and to play with each other and to really support each other's creativity. And as a matter of fact, now she's about halfway through her first book and very excited about it. And they have all kinds of new business projects that they're doing together and making contributions to their communities. So they've really rekindled their romance and rekindled their lasting love. So we know it can happen for both singles and for couples.
Do you remember my story about how I lost the 100 pounds back in 1969? Well, if you missed that part of the story, what happened is I used to weigh 320 pounds, and I had a kind of a big wake-up experience where I saw the old paradigm that was creating my weight, and I changed that paradigm and melted off over 100 pounds and have kept it off over the years. So it has to start somewhere. There was this one moment where I made a commitment to the new paradigm, where I made a commitment to living in a healthy, vibrant body. And then my actions begin to fall into place behind that. I remember the very first day, all I could find to eat was a bowl of blueberries. That was the only thing I could find that I felt like it was really would feed me. And I remember making those blueberries last all day long. Just they tasted so good because it was feeding the new paradigm. So what we want to do is tell you some of the things that are possible in close relationships that can happen once you open up to this new paradigm.
You know what nobody tells you about in close relationships is what's possible if you're not spending all of your time in power struggles and criticizing each other and recycling those same problems over and over again. There's a world of what's possible.
So in our old paradigm, we used to create arguments that recycled over and over again, just like you and probably everybody else in relationships has done at one time or the other. The second thing was that, you know, we had okay sex, but it was somewhat
What do you mean it was
ho-hum.
okay? And we criticized and blamed each other a lot.
And so, it was okay, but it was sometimes ho-hum. And and so, and we criticized each other. I thought it was her fault.
Yeah, no, I of course thought it was his fault. And when we first got together, not only we were in debt, but I had a Mustang that was leaking oil and $327, and I believe you had just had your credit card repossessed. So that's where we started in our money.
Yeah, exactly. So we've come quite a long way. The other thing, though, that I think was the real problem is that the old paradigm in us was creating arguments that ate up all our creative energy.
Yeah.
And check that out for yourself and find out if that's happened for you in relationships, because so many people have that problem, but they don't realize that's what's really happening. That those recycled arguments gradually eat up the very same creative energy that could be used to grow your family or to write a book or to make a transcendental soup or whatever it is that your creativity has you to do. But it goes out the window so that most people in long-term relationships feel like the relationship is actually making them less creative than they could possibly be.
So here's what's possible, and here's some of the things we've experienced. We haven't had an argument in so long that I can hardly even remember what an argument feels like.
We've also, I think we mentioned on another occasion, that we set the intention one magic day of eliminating blame and criticism from our lives. And it took us a while to do that, but gradually it worked, and to this point we haven't had a single harsh word between us in many, many years, probably at least 10 or 15 years. I can't even remember the last one.
I can't even remember. And sometimes when people hear that, they're kind of stunned. They can't even imagine what it would be like to live without criticism. But I want to let you know it's really enjoyable not to be criticizing. So with all of that free time that we have, we've created wealth and abundance really of all kinds of experiences and of resources and of people in our life because we're not spending time in the old paradigm.
And starting about 15 years ago, when we made a bunch of shifts that we're telling you about here, one of the things that happened was we didn't really start out trying to make our sex life necessarily much better, but as a result of that, it kind of went off the scale. So for the last 10 or 15 years, we've had absolutely anything but ho-hum sex.
Yeah, and for people who are now, we're in our 33rd year of being together, that is pretty exciting news, that sex can keep getting better and better and more intimate and more joyful. And one of the other wonderful things that's happened is that we've created a successful business. We've been an entrepreneurial business for more than 20 years now, and creating an opportunity for other people to enjoy their success in business.
But here's the thing I really want you to hear, that as these ideas began to take hold in us and we began to practice them, what happened was we quit arguing and eating up all our creative energy through recycling these same old problems. And so our creativity took a huge shift. You know, there was one point, like we said, where we didn't have enough money to pay our credit cards, and then roll the clock forward a few years to suddenly Oprah Winfrey calls one day and says, hey, how about coming on our show and talking about these things? So we went kind of like, wow, that's interesting, because just the night before we'd been sitting in front of the fireplace and we said, you know, we got to do something to kind of get these ideas out into the world a little bit more. So we changed our paradigm.
Right.
And what happened, interestingly enough, was we ended up helping Oprah change her paradigm, because the very first time we were invited to be on that show, they called us up and, or they came back into the green room before then, the producer, and says, okay, which one of you is going to do the talking?
We said,
Wait a minute.
this is a relationship. We both talk. And they said, oh, no. We can only have one talker because our cameras and our whole setup we're not set up for people to talk to each other. We thought,
and they said,
okay,
and they wanted me to do the talking, and Katie to kind of sit there and smile at me while I was talking. We said, no, I tell you what, we came on here as a couple. We want to actually show what a good relationship looks like. We don't want to just talk about it. So you change your camera angles and get it working so you can capture this together. And they did that. And so the next time we were on the show, they had it all set up for us. So it's possible to make big changes and see real changes come about in the material world very quickly. All right, that's all well and good that we did that, but how about you? So turn the focus on yourself right now. This is a moment of choice for you. Take a moment to consider, would you be willing to experience a relationship in your life that's just that good or maybe even better? Would you actually be willing to feel that for yourself? And I'd like you to take a few moments right now to just try that on, to feel if this is something you'd like to actually work on creating in your life.
Yeah, we want you to try on, to imagine, to activate the power of your imagination and your choice, and try on these new possibilities. We'd like you to try on the possibility of feeling loved, feeling a flow of love and ease all the time. So go ahead and try that on for yourself for a moment, that if you're willing to let yourself experience a flow of love and ease all the time.
So just take a few breaths with that and check out inside. All the time. Would I actually be willing to feel that all the time? So just take whatever answer you get. Maybe your body says, well, no, I'd be willing to do that half the time. Okay, that's fine. But just try on all the time first to give yourself the biggest stretch possible. Here's another one to try on. Would you be willing, ask yourself this, would I be willing to have a relationship that actually enhances my creativity? Just kind of breathe into that. The idea of, am I actually willing to have one, a relationship in my life that makes me more creative rather than drains my creativity? So just open up to that possibility.
and turn your imagination to the possibility of enjoying intimacy and great sex all the time. See if you would be willing to, first of all, try that on as a new possibility, and if you'd be willing to invite that into your life.
Here's another thing to try on. Would you be willing to have a relationship where when problems come up and issues arise, you move through those to resolution quickly rather than recycling them around and around? So just try on that possibility. Sure, problems happen from time to time in everybody's life. Everybody has to confront challenges and issues. So am I willing to move through those so that I keep opening up to more and more love in my life?
And here's another one. Would you be willing to have your relationship be such a source of creativity and abundance that you easily manifest what you want? Out of this new paradigm of creating ease and flow rather than struggle, you very naturally manifest more and more of what you really want and more of what you can create together. So try that one on and see how your body responds to that.
So here's another thing we'd like you to try on. Imagine having a relationship that actually inspires other people to greater love and manifestation themselves, so that your relationship, by the quality of it, becomes a work of art that actually inspires other people to more love and magnificence in their life. That's what's possible.
That's what's possible. And we've done it, and hundreds of people have done it, and we know that it's possible. So now it's your turn.
Check it out in yourself. Are you willing? When you look back at your life, when people look back at their life from the end point of their lives, one of the things that's always on their mind is, did I love to the maximum? Did I rise to my full potential in love? And that's what we want for you.
So please leave your comments and questions below, and we look forward to reading them and to responding to them.
Please share this video with your friends and family. There are buttons to click on Facebook and Twitter below to share it. So go ahead and share this with them, because they'll want to know how to create lasting love in their lives too, and they'll especially want to know how to make it easy.
And so until next time, we're wishing you lasting love made easy. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks a lot.